The village well is where the sickness likes to hang out first, just like last time, and the time before that. While Giles disappears down the path, you look over your current orders: a rake, 3 more hinges, 2 nails to replace ones lost in a floorboard, and oddly enough, a request from the priest for a small iron cross. That last one tells you everything you need to know. When the priest starts ordering talismans, it means he doesn't think prayer is enough. You cough again. Just smoke, you tell yourself. Just soot. You poke at the fire, absently letting the sparks drift like orange fireflies into the dark corners. You think about last season's plague. You lost half your customers, one of your cousins, even your neighbor's goat. You never knew goats could look worried, but that one did. This year, maybe it'll be different. Maybe the wind won't blow illness into town. Maybe the rats will skip your village. Maybe Giles is just bad at washing his hands and not harboring something medievally horrible in his sinuses. You don't really believe it, but you hold on to the thought anyway. Hope is like a tool. You don't always need it to be sharp, just close by. The door creaks again, and this time, it's old Tom, the cartwright, holding out a busted wheel rim with more rust than wood. He doesn't say hello, just points at his elbow and says, "Got the swelling again." You nod. "Leave the wheel, come back Thursday." He nods, leaves the rim leaning against the wall and limps away. You remember the rumors from last year. Tom's cousin swore that the sickness came from the north winds. Another blamed spoiled cabbage. Someone else thought it came from too much looking at sick people. People burned herbs, dug ditches, moved their beds into the woods. It didn't help. The sickness still came riding in on the back of a bad cough and too much hope. You forge faster than usual suddenly in a rush to finish everything before. You're not sure before what exactly. Just before it's too late. Before someone else scratches at your door and leaves behind silence and a payment in potatoes. You glance toward the corner where you keep a pouch of herbs, mostly dried sage, and something the apothecary insisted would keep death confused. You hung it over your bed last time. You still got sick. But only for 3 days. Others never stood up again. You add more fuel to the forge, the flames surging high, and for a moment the heat feels less oppressive and more defiant, like you're fighting back against something invisible with fire and stubbornness. The village bell rings again, once then again. Not a toll, not yet, but a signal, a warning. Something's coming. You grip your hammer tighter, not because you're afraid, but because fear, like everything else, can be shaped with iron. The bell stops ringing, but its echo hangs in the air, a dull weight pressing on your shoulders. You hammer slower now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because every clang sounds a little too loud. Like the forge is the only thing daring to make noise in a village that's suddenly gone quiet. Out the window, people walk faster than usual, heads down, baskets clutched tighter. You spot a friar moving house to house with a pouch of herbs and an expression that says he doesn't believe in any of it, but he's doing it anyway. You lean on your anvil and watch the town through a haze of smoke. You're not important, not really. You're not rich or powerful or connected. You're not invited to feasts or mentioned in sermons. And yet here they come, one after another. Someone needs a gate fixed. Someone else lost the pin in their plow. A child shows up holding half a broken spoon and a piece of cloth with a coin tied in the corner. She stares at you without saying anything. You fix the spoon and don't take the coin. Social status somewhere below pig herder. No one says it outright, of course. They nod. They call you Master Smith sometimes, especially when they want something fast or cheap. But you know the truth. When it comes to status, you're sandwiched awkwardly between the barrel maker who sings too much and the shepherd whose flock once wandered into a funeral. You don't get invited to the nobles' banquets. You don't sit at the long tables during festival days. If the local reeve has a question, he asks the priest. If the Lord needs advice, he asks the steward. You hammer in the background. Historians have written pages about the blacksmith's essential role in the medieval economy, but being essential doesn't mean being respected. Cows are essential too. No one asks their opinion on tax reform. You remember once overhearing two merchants talking in the square. One said, "If the smith dies, we'll have to bring a new one in." The other replied, "Just as long as he's cheaper." Charming. But then again, you're not in this for praise. You're in it because someone has to make the things everyone else depends on, but never thinks about. You're the reason their doors close, their carts roll, their axes bite into wood instead of bouncing off. You do all this with hands like cracked leather lungs, like broken bellows, and knees that pop like old floorboards. And still, your name doesn't appear in records. The local scribe once spelled it, hammered on a tax sheet. That's not even a name. You sigh and pick up your tongs. The horseshoe you were working on has cooled too fast, gone brittle. You toss it into the scrap bucket, which has become your most consistent companion. Then you look over at Giles. He's sniffling again, still red-faced. You glare. "Go home." "I'm fine, Giles." "Home." He hesitates. He knows better than to argue, but he hates leaving you alone. It's oddly sweet if also incredibly impractical. He wipes his nose on his sleeve and stumbles out, leaving behind a trail of wood shavings and questions you don't want to answer yet. You reach for the next piece, an axe head this time, meant for the woodcutter on the edge of town, the one who talks to trees when he thinks no one's listening. You like that guy. You start shaping the edge. The rhythm of it is familiar, almost comforting. A reminder that even if no one celebrates you, the work remains. Honest. Real. Still you wonder. About your place. About your worth. About whether the village would notice if your forge suddenly went dark one morning. They would. Maybe not all at once, but over time. Hinges would rust. Tools would dull. Doors would swing open when they shouldn't. But would they remember you? You once repaired a ceremonial gate for the Lord's manor. Delicate iron vines 6 feet high took you 2 weeks. At the unveiling, the steward said, "What craftsmanship." No mention of the person who made it. The gate got a name. You didn't, so you gave it one anyway. Called it Gertrude. No one asked why. You still smile when you walk past it. That's how it is. Your work gets noticed. You don't, unless something breaks. Then you're very noticed. Suddenly, everyone remembers who you are, where you live, and how quickly they expect you to fix it. Last month, the miller's wheel cracked. She arrived at your forge before sunrise, yelling about lost grain and cursed lumber. You repaired the wheel. She left without a thank you. Left a jar of pickled turnips, though. You haven't opened it, afraid of what's floating inside. Social hierarchy in your village is clear. Nobles rule, clergy, preach merchants' profit, and you, well, you keep everything literally from falling apart. And yet you eat last, sleep little, and sweat out your wages in trade goods and back pain. Still, you work, because while they might not treat you like someone important, they need you like one. And there's a strange kind of power in that. So when someone sneezes in the distance and 3 shutters slam shut, you hammer a little harder, a little louder. You won't be the one hiding. If you're going to be somewhere near the bottom, you might as well be the foundation. There's a cruel sort of comedy to your workbench. The very tools you rely on each day are themselves in various stages of collapse. The tongs are warped one side shorter than the other. Your hammer has a crack in the handle that's been creeping like ivy for months. The rasp is more rust than file, and your favorite chisel is held together with a strip of rawhide and, frankly, stubbornness. Welcome to tools of the trade, mostly broken. You sigh, turning over your punch iron, hoping the edge hasn't dulled again. It has. Of course it has. Giles tried using it to stir the fire last week. You remember because you threw a shoe at him. Missed. Hit the goat. The goat was not impressed. You once dreamed of having a full set of matched, sharp, polished tools, something worthy of a master smith, the kind passed down generations and wrapped in oilcloth, kept in a dry chest away from the grime. Instead, you've got bits and pieces, hand-me-downs, warped bits, salvaged from carts, and the occasional tool you made for yourself in a rare moment of optimism. You even made your own anvil stand once. It fell over. Twice. And yet, somehow things still get done. Take today's disaster, a dozen nails for the thatcher. Simple enough, except your nail header, the tool used to form the head, snapped last week when Giles dropped it on the corner of the hearthstone. So now you're improvising, using the back of a flattened hinge and a prayer to St. Jude, patron of lost causes. Historians rarely talk about the state of a blacksmith's tools. They speak of master artisans and workshops, as if you're all surrounded by gleaming instruments forged in heaven. Truth is, most of what you own looks like it lost a bar fight, and probably did. Your hammer, the most important tool, is so worn that its head is slightly lopsided. You've adjusted your swing to compensate. That's why your right shoulder sits lower than your left. Permanently. You think about replacing the handle. Then you remember no good wood, no money, no time. So you patch and repatch, and then tie the handle with a bit of boiled leather and pray it lasts another week. The forge tongs are another joke. You've got 3 pairs. One is too loose, one is too tight, and one is so hot from overuse it hisses when you drop it in water. You use them anyway, rotating through them like bad options at a village dance. And let's talk about the bellows. You rebuilt them yourself 3 winters ago. The leather was stiff and cracked, and you had to line it with scraps from an old boot. It squeaks like a dying rat every time you pump it. Adds character, you suppose. There's a splinter in your thumb from the handle of your rasp. You leave it in. You've pulled so many out, your skin's learned to just push them back out eventually. Like a porcupine with opinions. You've even taken to forging repair parts for your own tools, metal sleeves for cracked handles, pegs for loose joints. Once you made a clamp out of a bent horseshoe and a bent nail. Still using it. It's hideous, but effective. That's the thing, you don't have the best tools. You have your tools. They're ugly patched and possibly cursed, but they fit your hands. They know your work. And you, in turn, know how to coax life from them, even when they're one swing from splintering. It's not just about the tools, either. Your whole workshop is a Frankenstein's creature of salvage and adaptation. Your workbench, made from half a wagon. The legs don't match. One's actually a bundle of firewood you never untied. The grindstone. It wobbles. Has a chunk missing from the edge where a chicken once panicked mid-spin and took half the grit with it. The water barrel for quenching is cracked, patched with pitch, and smells faintly of onions. You think Giles used it to rinse his laundry. You didn't ask. You just keep your quenching to one side and hope for the best. Even the roof of your forge leaks, in 2 places. You've arranged your tools to avoid the drips. When it storms, you just put a bucket over the anvil and wait it out. There's something ridiculous and kind of noble in it. You work miracles with junk. You shape strength with scraps. If someone handed you a chest full of gold and said, "Go buy the finest gear," you'd laugh yourself hoarse. Then forge a better chest with what you have. Because it's not about perfect tools. It's about stubborn persistence. About refusing to stop just because your hammer split, or your tongs are held together with sheep gut and anxiety. That said, you wouldn't say no to a new rasp, or a proper set of chisels, maybe even a file that doesn't look like it survived a war. But for now, you work with what you've got. You take the cracked hammer, the melted clamp, the anvil with one chipped corner, and you make do, because that's what you've always done. And somehow, despite the splinters and the squeaks and the rust, the work still gets finished. The wheel still rolls, the plow still bites, the axe still cuts, and you still swing. Just as you finish rewrapping the handle on your hammer with yet another strip of boiled leather, courtesy of an old sandal, you hear it a voice outside, high-pitched and very determined. "Oi, Smith. You there?" You pause. That tone can only mean one thing. Customers who threaten you politely. You step to the doorway, wiping your hands, and sure enough, it's Garwin, the Cooper barrel maker, self-proclaimed expert on structural integrity and constant source of your headaches. He's got one arm around a wagon wheel and the other pointing accusingly in your general direction. This pin you made bent. He shoves a wooden axle pin under your nose. It's got a slight curve. It's also clearly been driven into the wrong hole with enough force to bend iron. You sigh. You drove it in sideways, you say. He blinks. Well, it should have fit. You want to scream. You don't. Instead, you offer to replace it. For a fee. He groans, mutters about service, and hands you a bag of barley. A light one. You take it anyway. You need the calories. It's not just Garwin. Everyone's like this. Nobles want perfection. Perfect swords, perfect armor, perfect anything, and they want it yesterday. Peasants want miracles, tools that don't wear out hinges, that swing forever, blades that stay sharp after hacking through bones, firewood, and the occasional door. And you get blamed when iron behaves like, well, iron. A few years ago you made a scythe for the reeve, sharpened to perfection, balanced like a dancer's step. He used it to hack a stump out of the ground. It snapped. He called it shoddy work. You called it abuse. He fined you anyway. Another time a knight's page brought back a dented helm you'd made demanding a refund. Said the helm had failed in combat. You asked what hit it. He said, a falling sheep. Still not over that one. Historians often idealize the blacksmith's role as a noble trade, a respected figure in the medieval village. Sure, maybe from a distance. But up close, you're just the guy people yell at when their door squeaks. And they will yell. Or complain. Or if they're noble enough, suggest improvements with the same tone one might use for discussing the weather before a duel. It's not always threats either. Sometimes it's guilt. You remember old Merrick the shepherd, who begged for a new shears blade, and then tried to pay you with blessings and goodwill. When you declined, he sighed and muttered. Suppose you wouldn't help an old man feed his family then. You gave him the blade. He gave you a wool scrap full of holes. You turned it into a potholder. Occasionally it's flattery. Oh, Master Smith, no one can temper steel like you. They'll say eyes wide. Surely you can just squeeze in one more job before tomorrow. And then they hand you something broken in 3 places and shaped like a question mark. You're tired, you're sore, and your hammer has splintered again. But sure, one more job. You're reminded of the time a noble asked for a completely silent chainmail shirt. You still don't know what he meant. You made the quietest one you could. He claimed it jingled in his soul. You stopped asking questions. There was also that time you made a lock for the baker's storage chest. She gave you one day to do it. The next week, she claimed it was too complicated and broke the key off inside. She now stores her flour in a basket covered with a rock. But every so often, just often enough, someone surprises you, like the widow who brought you her late husband's axe. Not to repair it, but to melt it down and turn it into something new, a garden hoe for her to use in the plot he once tilled. You didn't charge her. She left you a pouch of dried apples and a note that just said, "For what you gave back." Or the traveling trader who returned a year later, saying the horseshoes you made him lasted twice as long as expected. Paid in coin, too. Actual coin. You still have one tucked in your belt pouch, like a good luck charm. But those moments are rare. Most days it's more like today, people grumbling, pointing, complaining. You take it in stride. Because you have to. Because your name is on your work, and your work is in everything. You finish reshaping Garwin's axle pin and toss it into a bucket to cool. You hand it over without a word. He mumbles something about next time doing it himself, then trips over his own cart as he leaves. You don't laugh. Not loudly, anyway. You return to your forge, adjust your cracked tongs, and get back to work. Because whether they thank you or threaten you, they always come back. There's barely time to wipe the sweat from your face before the next knock comes. A soft one this time, almost hesitant. You brace for impact. The polite ones are usually the most exhausting. You open the door to find Mira, your wife, standing there with an eyebrow raised and a bucket of laundry in her hands. You were supposed to fix the stool, she says, not unkindly. Ah, right, the stool. It broke 4 days ago when your youngest tried to stand on it to reach the honey jar. The legs snapped and dumped her onto the floor with a yelp that echoed through the village. You promised you'd fix it by morning, 4 mornings ago. I'll get to it tonight, you mumble. She nods and glides back inside the inside, being just over there 4 paces behind you. Because remember, your entire house is also your forge, and your kitchen, and your bedroom, and possibly your livestock shed if that chicken ever comes back. Marriage, kids, and 0 privacy. The fire roars again as you stoke it, and from the corner of the room, you hear your daughter giggling. She's playing with a scrap of rope and one of your broken horseshoes, pretending it's a carriage. You smile, then immediately stop, because smiling makes your face crack in all the sore places. You love your family. You do. But in a single-room house built mostly from leftover planks and eternal optimism, personal space is a myth. You've sneezed directly into someone's dinner before. It happens. At night, you all sleep in a row, wife, 2 kids, and you on a mat so close to the forge, it's a miracle you haven't rolled into the embers mid-dream. You snore. Your wife grinds her teeth. The kids talk in their sleep. The dog occasionally joins and steals your blanket. It's chaos, it's noisy, it's yours. Your mother-in-law used to live with you too. She had a cot by the forge and an opinion about everything, especially your choice of materials. You call that iron, she once said, pointing at your best billet. You told her it was actually steel. She called it witch's garbage. She passed last year. You miss her in a strange, quiet sort of way. So does the dog. Dinner, when it happens, is eaten while sitting on crates, barrels, or whatever's clean. Table is a generous term for the rickety board, propped on an anvil and a wheel hub. You once tried to build a proper bench, but then the blacksmith from 2 towns over died, and you had to fill his orders for a month. The wood is still stacked in the corner waiting. Historians sometimes romanticize the medieval home as a place of hearth and heart. Yours has both, plus smoke, soot, and at least 1 mouse you've stopped trying to catch. The kids are fascinated by your tools. They've each stolen something from your workbench. Your son has a mini hammer. You dulled the edges, don't worry. And your daughter insists that tongs are dragon pinchers. You let her keep them. Giles, when he's not breaking something or coughing, tries to be invisible around your family. It doesn't work. Your wife puts him to work churning butter. He's not good at it, but he's quiet. And that counts for something. There's no privacy for arguments either. Every disagreement happens in full view of at least 3 chickens and a pot of stew. You fought about burned bread, bent tools, the missing stool leg, and whether your boots should be allowed on the sleeping mat. They should not. You once had a huge row over the direction the wind was blowing. It turned out both of you were wrong. And then there are the quiet moments, rare but golden. When the forge is cool and the kids are asleep, and Mira sits beside you by the open door, both of you sharing the last heel of bread and a mug of weak beer. You talk about nothing, about the moon, about whether the neighbor's sheep look weird, about dreams you used to have. She once wanted to be a healer. You once wanted to see the sea. Neither of you got your wish. But you have each other a roof that only leaks in one corner, and a daughter who insists she's going to be the first night blacksmith princess. You believe her. There's a reason you keep going. It's not the money, huh? It's not the fame. What fame? It's this. The noisy, smoky, overstuffed little box you call home. The place where you can burn your thumb on a horseshoe and get kissed by a sticky child 2 minutes later. Historians still argue about the structure of medieval homes, whether families slept together for warmth, for culture, or for lack of space. You can confidently say all three. You shift a pair of boots from the workbench to make room for your wife's bread dough. She slaps it down with a satisfying thud and starts kneading beside a pile of nails. You reach for your hammer again. The day's not done. It never is, but in a house like this and a life like yours, sometimes the only thing you can do is swing step over a child, avoid the stew pot, and keep going. Love and labor share the same roof here, along with the goat. You still haven't figured out how it keeps getting in. The fire flickers low. Not dangerously low, not yet, but enough that your eyes narrow. You set down the tongs and shuffle toward the coal pile only to find it mostly gone. A few smudges. One miserable crumbling lump that breaks when you touch it. Oh no, the fire's out again. This is the part you dread most. Not the burns, not the aching back, not even the insults from picky nobles. It's the cold forge, the silent anvil, the stillness that creeps in when the fire dies, and suddenly everything is too quiet. You crouch near the embers, coaxing them, feeding them thin splinters and breath like a worried parent. But there's no bite left, no glow, just ash. It's bad in the summer, worse in the rainy months, but in winter, deadly. A cold forge doesn't just mean no income, it means no warmth. Your family will sleep colder tonight. Your bread won't rise. Your tools will rust if the humidity creeps in. You look outside. It's late. The streets are empty. Not a soul stirring, just fog and the distant hoot of an owl that sounds personally disappointed in your fuel management. You grab your cloak, more holes than fabric, and head out. There's a pile of broken crates behind the tavern that sometimes gets overlooked. If you're lucky, there's something dry. If you're unlucky, it'll be rats. You're used to both. Your boots crunch over frost-tipped grass. The night is bitter, and your joints feel like someone swapped your bones for rusted nails. You pass the chapel where the lantern still burns. The priest is probably praying for deliverance. You're praying for firewood. You reach the tavern quietly as you can. The back door's locked, but the crates are where you hoped, stacked under the eaves. You break one open with a rock pocket, a few decent pieces, and sling them under your arm. There's a moral dilemma in here somewhere, you think. Stealing firewood to relight the fire that keeps you and half the village alive. But the innkeeper owes you 3 hinges and never paid. Consider it even. Back home, your fingers barely work. You fumble with the flint strike once, twice, nothing. Third time a spark. It flares, dies. You whisper encouragement. You promise it honey if it behaves. It flares again. Then, glow. You feed the flame carefully, as though convincing a stubborn child to eat. Slivers first, then slats, then one full plank. The forge wakes reluctantly. The heat kisses your cheeks. Your shoulders drop a little. You've relit the heart of your world. Historians still debate the significance of fire in blacksmith life. Some say it was a tool, others say it bordered on spiritual. You know where you stand. It's both. Your forge is your altar, your enemy, your friend. When it dies, you feel it in your bones. When it lives, so do you. You stand over it. Now, hands out, soaking in the returning warmth, like someone thawing after near death. Your tools gleam faintly in the light, and the anvil catches the glow like a sentinel. You look at your hands. Cracked. Soot-covered. One nail blackened, one blister opened and forgotten. But they've done it. They brought the fire back. You remember a winter 5 years ago. The fire went out for 2 days. Your daughter got sick. Your fingers wouldn't bend. You almost gave up. But you didn't. You lit a tiny ember in a clay bowl and fed it twigs for hours. That ember became your salvation. It always starts small, and now tonight again it burns. You stoke it gently. Whisper thanks to no one in particular. Maybe St. Eligius. Maybe the ghost of that one chicken that laid eggs in your coal bin. Then you go to the back corner and add the fire to your stew pot. It warms. Slightly. Enough. The house is quiet now. The kids are asleep. Mira's bundled under a blanket with her feet nearly in the hearth. Even the goat is curled into itself by the door, looking smug. You sit by the firearms draped over your knees and let your mind wander. What if the fire didn't come back next time? What if the wood ran out for good? You'd adapt. You always do. You'd tear down your own door frame if you had to. Burn your bed frame. Your tools, even if it came to that. Because the forge isn't just where you work. It's where you live. And without it, you're not just cold. You're gone. So you stay vigilant. Always. Even now as the coals crackle and the temperature rises, you keep a bucket of kindling nearby. You sharpen your flint every few days. You check the airflow like a priest checks his sermon ritually religiously. Because when the fire's out, so are you. But tonight it lives, and you live with it. You wake up before the rooster. Again. Your breath fogs in the early morning chill, even with the forge still smoldering nearby. Mira stirs beside you, murmuring something about the stool again. Your daughter's tiny foot is planted squarely against your ribs. The dog is using your ankle as a pillow. You groan, stretch, and your shoulder cracks like a falling branch. That one's new. Outside the sky is the color of old parchment. You roll off the mat and feel your knees protest with every ounce of medieval drama they can muster. The forge is alive at least. That's something. Coals glowing like sleepy eyes. You move on autopilot. Stoke, stir, check tools. Rub your eyes with the sleeve you swore you'd clean yesterday. Swear again when you realize it's dirtier than before. Then you see it, a crack in your anvil. You freeze. It's a hairline barely visible, but unmistakable. A thin fracture running like a river down the center of the one thing in this world you thought would never break. When the anvil breaks, so do you. You touch it gently like checking the pulse of a dying friend. It's warm, solid, but wounded. Like you. This anvil has been with you longer than your children. Longer than some of your teeth. You've pounded thousands of blades on its surface, sung lullabies in its rhythm, and leaned on it after too many hours in the fire. And now it's giving out. You stare at it for a long time, unsure whether to feel rage, sorrow, or just the usual weary acceptance. Then you do what any self-respecting blacksmith does in a crisis. You sit on a bucket and quietly panic. There's no replacing it, not easily. A new anvil costs more than your house. And even if you had the coin, where would you get one? The nearest city is days away, and the road is full of bandits, potholes, and angry geese. You think about trying to fix it. Forge a brace, reinforce the base. But cracks like this, they spread. They whisper to the rest of the metal that it's okay to fall apart. Kind of like your joints. Historians still argue whether blacksmiths viewed their anvils as tools or sacred objects. You know the truth, it's both. The anvil isn't just a work surface, it's your anchor, your partner, your proof that you've endured. You remember when you first got it, dragged it uphill on a borrowed cart, cursed every step. It was too heavy, too cold, and had someone else's name stamped on the side. You filed that name off and burned your own initials into the base. Now the base wobbles slightly. You run your hand across the top, feeling the dings and dents, every mark a memory. That deep gouge from the time a mercenary wanted a mace as fast as possible. The scorch near the edge from when the oil pot exploded. The tiny flower stamp in the corner your daughter hammered in when she was 2. And now a crack. Mira finds you, like that, hunched, staring, unmoving. She doesn't ask. She just presses a warm mug into your hand and squeezes your shoulder. Then she goes back to stirring the morning pot, humming softly under her breath. You sip the drink. It tastes like burnt barley and something medicinal. You hate it. You finish it anyway. You start making mental lists of scrap. You might melt down friends. You might ask favors from barter. You might offer in exchange for a new block of iron. You don't love any of the ideas. Giles arrives bright-eyed and coughing as usual, and you show him the crack. He leans in close, squints, and says, "Maybe we can patch it." You laugh. It surprises both of you. He grins. "We've fixed worse." You nod. "True." So you try. You heat a strip of iron, bend it carefully around the base like a bandage. You bore holes and drive in rivets. You whisper to the anvil, not prayers exactly, but promises. You've got more work to do. You're not done yet. The reinforcement isn't elegant. It's not even straight. But it holds, for now. You swing your hammer, gently testing. The sound is different, duller somehow, but it still sings. A little. You breathe out. There's a metaphor in there, you think, about cracks and healing and stubborn old things refusing to die. You don't have time to dwell. The tanner's back with a broken skiving knife, and the shepherd dropped off a bell that doesn't ring right. And the forge, she's waiting. You step forward, pick up the hammer, and raise it. The anvil holds. So do you. The hammer falls again. And again. The rhythm at this point is less about work and more about existence. You strike because striking is what you do. Because motion is life. Because if you stop, the stillness might swallow you whole. Outside, the sky has turned a pale, indifferent gray. The kind of light that makes everything feel like it's happening under a wet sheet. You glance toward the door. No visitors yet. Just the clatter of a cart in the distance. The bark of a dog. The faint creak of shutters opening too late. You shape the last of the 3 hinges. They're plain no flourishes today. You don't have the energy. Functional. Strong. Just like you. Just like they need to be. Your shoulder aches with every lift of the hammer. That tendon that's been a bit stiff for the last decade is now openly threatening mutiny. Your knuckles feel fused. You try to stretch your fingers and hear at least 2 joints pop like overcooked beans. You've started measuring time not in seasons or even in weeks, but in the way your body changes. The new pain in your hip. The way your knee clicks going up steps. The quiet, steady descent into early old age. Aching bones, dull dreams. You can't remember the last time you woke up feeling rested. You do remember the last time you fell asleep sitting upright with a horseshoe in your lap. 2 nights ago. Your neck still hates you for it. Giles brings you a hunk of cheese and a flat loaf. You take it with a nod. It tastes of smoke and optimism, which is to say not very much. You chew slowly, letting the warmth of the forge fill your bones. The fire's burning well today, no thanks to the wind, which rattles the door like it's jealous. You toss another log in and watch the flames leap, twisting and snarling, like they've got something to prove. It makes you think about what this all means, not in a grand philosophical way. You're not a monk, you don't write scrolls, but you think all the same. You think about the tools you've made that outlived their owners, the gate latches still used by children who've never met you, the sword that passed from knight to squire, then got buried in the woods because the knight dropped it while fleeing a goose. You still chuckle about that one. You wonder sometimes if your children will take up the trade. Your daughter has the hands for it, quick, strong, precise. Your son's more interested in drawing strange animals on walls with charcoal. You're not sure what that means yet, but he did draw an impressively accurate anvil last week, complete with the crack. There's something comforting in that even if the work fades, the image might remain. Historians still argue whether blacksmithing was a hereditary trade or simply passed down out of necessity. You'd say both. It's in the blood, yes, but it's also in the walls, in the scars, in the soot that never quite washes off. You catch sight of your reflection in the bucket of water beside the forge. Hard to say which is grayer, your beard or the sky outside. Your face is lined like a topographical map, every furrow a memory. Your eyes, though those still burn. Dimmer, maybe, but lit. You finish the hinges and lay them out to cool. Simple work. Good work. The bell rings outside. Not the village bell yours. The one you rigged from an old horseshoe and a bit of bent rod. It clatters against the post when someone pulls the string. You don't rush to answer it. You never do. Instead, you take a moment. Just one. You breathe in. The air is thick with iron ash and bread that might be burning. Again. You make a note to check it. Later, you rise slowly, every joint chiming like a badly tuned lute. You wipe your hands on your apron. It doesn't help. You're perpetually stained. Then you open the door. It's the young scribe from town holding a broken lantern frame and a satchel full of scrolls. He smiles nervously. I heard you were the best. You smile back. Just a little. No, you say. I'm just the one who's still here. You let him in. The forge glows. The fire sings. And somewhere in your chest, where the dreams used to live, there's a quiet kind of peace. Because this is what you do. What you've always done. And until your hands fall off, you'll keep doing it.